How many times have you been at a meeting and you thought to yourself, man, I wish so-and-so was here to hear this? Has that ever happened to you? Like if you've been in Primerica for more than 3 months, that's happened to you. Like, wow, I wish someone could hear this, who's here. And so without further ado, let's get on our feet. Let's give a huge Southfield welcome to Ian.
Well, it's good to be here. I drove really fast. I'm thankful I didn't have to get any tickets on the way down. And I'm excited just to see the growth. And hello, Lois. It's good to see you back in town. She brought all the warm weather with us, so that's exciting. We don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to do my best tonight. Greg and Aristide wanted me to talk about the power of the meeting, right? And so you're obviously at the meeting, right? So that's a good start. So high five your neighbor and tell them, way to go. You accomplished point one, right? All right, so I think I just clicked the big button there. All right, so I'm going to pop through some of this. But you got to think about, there's just so many facets on this that you can discuss. But really, the number one thing you got to understand is anybody that's not at the meeting is not on your team, okay? And if you ever want to be free, if you ever want to have just an incredible life, you have got to build a team that allows you to delineate your income from your time, right? Because if you have to spend the time to go get clients, you're never going to be free. You own a job, basically, right? Okay, you got to get a team together that knows what they're doing, knows why they're doing it, and can communicate that to other people who will go and get more people to do the same thing, right? And that is the name of our business. 100%, but most people never get that critical mass started. Think about our business and building a team kind of like boiling water, right? At 211 degrees, you just have hot water. And you're putting some flame to it, right? You're putting some energy into that to heat that thing up to 211. But if you never get that to 212, it's never going to boil. It's never going to bubble over the top. You're never going to be able to do anything with it. But when you stop and think about it, that 1 degree difference on 211 degrees is less than 0.5%. Less than 0.5% difference in that energy. And it's the difference between everything happening and it getting big and going fast and it just kind of taking on a life of its own and running away. And you look down one day and you're like, wow, how did this happen? Or are you struggling? And you got the same 2 people at the meeting and you're like, don't quit, Paul. He's like, I quit 3 times on the way here, but I still made it. Right, okay? That's the difference is that big. The difference is that big. And the difference is in more people than you being committed to the team and being committed to creating an environment, right? So I want you to think about a couple of things. I want you to think about first what you get out of it, right? Because I think so many times, here's the truth, right? Here's the truth. We, especially for those of us who have been in the business a little while, right? We start thinking, well, I've heard that before. Well, I know that. Listen, there's a difference between I've heard this, I mentally assent to this knowledge, and I know that by doing that, right? Does that make sense? Okay, and so the thing I always did, I wanted to have like a childlike enthusiasm for the trainings. You know how many meetings I've been to, you all? Lots, right? Okay? Lots and lots of meetings. I do my meetings. I do meetings for other people. I've been to lots of meetings. But every time I go, I get something new. I get something that I can focus on to grow myself. I've got to get better, just like you've got to get better, right? When we're not growing, we're dying. And so every meeting I looked like it was an opportunity for me to get my skill set better, my belief set better, to think bigger, to get around people who push me to be better than I was. Right? And see, that's just a different perspective, isn't it? Some of us came in here to this meeting tonight saying, I'm taking something out of this that's going to take me to the next place in my life. And some of us came into this meeting like that dadgum Greg, always busting my you-know-what to get to the meeting, right? And we came to the same place. We're getting the same information. We're being taught by the same leaders, the same winners. But one of us is going to walk away with knowledge that's going to empower us, inspire us to do bigger, better, faster. The other one is just going to be here, but wasn't even here, right? Does that make sense? So think about it in terms of what are you going to take from the meeting? What are you getting out of it? What you're going to build for your team. And then at the end, I'm going to take you through a little exercise that I took our full-timers with when we have less people than this in our organization, that we just kind of put the vision in their heads, in their hearts of what we were trying to build. And then before you knew it, we had the police at our office. Remember that? Every Tuesday, every Friday, the cops were there, not because they were interested in opportunity, but because our neighbors did not like that our people were parking everywhere, right? We had to go and buy a building next to a church that we pay $400 a month to let us use their parking lot, right? Because it got big, and that big team allowed us to have a big dream. Without a big team, you can't have a big dream. You can have a small dream, okay? And I don't want you to have a small dream. And Art Williams didn't create this company for you to have a small dream. Folks, if you want average and ordinary, if you want to trade time for money, get your 60 grand, hope to God it works out and that you save enough, you don't need this. This is not for you. This is the hardest thing I've ever seen to make 50 grand a year in. I mean, it is hard. It's every cent is your effort, your blood, sweat, and tears. It's the easiest thing I've ever seen to make 50 grand a month in. Right? Where you can go on vacation half the year and the money just keeps coming, right? But it comes from a big team. So think about this, the meeting. It's all about your skills improving. Okay? Because if you can't get somebody to say yes to you, Greg was talking about how terrible of a closer I am, right? Okay? And I'm not the best. For sure, I'm not the best at it, but I'm good enough. I'm good enough to get it done, right? Okay? But listen, some of you ain't good enough. You're not great. You're not good enough. People be buying from you because they hope you just leave the house. They're like, this is so painful. You got a 3-hour recruiting appointment. You're talking about IBR and IBA, and you're mixing it up. You're like, it's only $600 to start. You get two free iPads. You're telling them all sorts of bull crap that's totally wrong, right? Because you don't know what you're doing. Okay? So listen, here's a litmus test. Are 7 of 10 people you're sitting with joining or buying from you? If not, you got room to improve. Okay? And if they are, congratulations. Good job, right? Okay? So your skills are going to improve. Your belief is going to increase. Listen, here's the end of the story. Why don't most people win in Primerica? They simply don't believe they can. Sooner or later, their self-talk sounds kind of like this. Gosh, I don't know if this is ever going to happen for me. I just don't know. I just don't know if it makes sense for me to keep putting time into these trainings. I just don't really see myself. And you're toast. Folks, you got to cut. The meetings show you belief. Look at your neighbor. Okay? Look at your other neighbor. Look behind you. I promise you, there's at least a couple people in here that are going to make $1 million a year doing this. Okay? Don't woo. Don't woo. Okay? They are. They're going to make $1 million a year doing this. Right? And you're around those people. And you're going to watch them grow. And you're going to be like, dude, if that guy can do it, that guy, really, that one is doing it, I can do it. And listen, that little belief, that's the difference between winning and losing. Right? Every time I came to a meeting early on, I was scared. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I was going to be good enough. I didn't know if I was good enough to keep it going. But I always saw somebody who was a little further than me. Right? And that said, hey, keep going. Your belief is going to increase. Your thinking gets better. See, listen, we can't get to where we need to go with the thinking we currently have. We've got to think a little differently, right or right. Okay, listen, our mindset's got to change a little bit. Most of us are walking around thinking the same thoughts we were thinking a decade ago, which is why we're in the same place we were at a decade ago. And this comes here and it challenges the belief systems that are holding you back. I want you to write down a question. Are my beliefs serving me? Are my beliefs serving me? Because listen, if what you believe is true and right, it's going to produce fruit in your life. How many of you saw Greg sweet talking the tree out in front of the building saying, come on tree, turn your leaves a different color and drop them to the ground. Encouraging the tree to do what it naturally does. It doesn't need your help to do what it's supposed to do, right? Okay, why? Because it's operating on a principle, right? And so most of us are in violation of life's principles with our thinking, which is why we're in violation of life's results, right? We're supposed to grow. We're supposed to get better. We're supposed to prosper. We're supposed to have abundance in our life. God didn't put you here to torment you and tease you with people doing the same thing you're doing that are making 10, 50, and 100 times more than you, some of you, right? He didn't put you here for that. He put you here to give you that same thing, right? That same thing. But our thinking will stop us. I don't deserve that. I don't see myself doing it. Well, then that's exactly what you're going to have, right? Your thinking is going to get better. Your commitments are going to get tested. See, listen, the only place, right? You got to understand, that to win in this business and in any business, it's going to test your commitment, right? Most of you, if you were sick, you'd show up to your job, most likely, unless you were really sick, okay, right? But you'd show up because you don't want to take your day off because you need to finagle it, make sure it's on this part for your vacation. You're going to come in, you're going to get it done. That's how you treat a job, working for somebody else, making somebody else wealthy, right? And then we get the sniffle here, we're like, Greg, I think I'm dying. I can't be at the next 6 meetings. I have a cough, right? My grandma's dog died 6 years ago too, and I'm just having a bad day at that one, right? Our commitments are going to get tested. Our commitments are going to get tested, right? And that's life testing. It's asking you, how bad do you want it? Right? Listen, I didn't ever miss a meeting. I did an op meeting once, sounded like Darth Vader. I had no voice. I did the whole op meeting like this. Why? Because I'm committed. Are you committed? The meeting is the first litmus test, right? If you can't show up to practice, how are you going to be on the championship team? Right? Does that make sense? So this is your practice. This is where you get the skills, not out on the kitchen tables, not on recruiting appointments, right here. When everybody else is off doing something else and goofing off, and you're paying the price, and you're developing your skills, this is what sets you apart. Nothing else. Nothing else. It's what gives you the confidence that you're going to need, okay? Your leadership level is going to improve. This business is going to teach you how to be a leader. Any of you realize that? Okay, it's going to teach you how to be a leader. Because listen, if you're just walking and nobody's following you, you're not leading, right? You're not leading. And it's not possible for you to attract and retain people that are bigger leaders than you are, right? Does that make sense? If you're a 7 on the scale of 1 to 10 and you recruit an 8, that 8's going to smell you out, right? They're going to realize real quick, wow, this person doesn't do what they say. This person talks a big game, but I don't see the results. They're going to come to the meeting and be like, where's all the people you talked about, right? Does that make sense? It improves your leadership level. When Assad Faraj walks into your business, is he going to follow you? When Greg Lambrecht walks into your business, is he going to follow you? The answer is yes, if you'll come and plug in and apply the things you're taught here, right? Okay, I didn't know anything about leadership. I'd never been in sales, never run a business. My biggest team I had was 12 people, right? It was my worship team. That's the most amount of people I ever recruited for anything in my life. But I came here and I learned the process by coming to the meetings and plugging in, and it filled my gap in belief and skill set until I knew how to do it myself. Everybody understand that? Okay, there we go. Boom. Okay? Your people, so that's you, right? What about your people? You are fooling yourself if you think you'll ever build a team without the infrastructure of the trainings. Why? We're not buying people's time. We're not forcing them to come and sit with you for 8 hours a day and watch them with cameras and make sure they only take pee breaks for so long, right? Okay? They're doing whatever they want all day, right? Okay, and you get a couple of touches a week with them to teach them what they need to know, to inspire them, to build their confidence, to build their leadership. If you don't commit to that process, you will not get other people to commit to that process, and you'll build a house made of cards, right? Because listen, if you had 10 people on your team, Pete, and none of them knew what they were doing, how many sales would your 10 guys make? Zero. How much money would you make from that? Zero. So why did you even bother taking all that time to recruit those people? You've got to train them. So if we get 10 guys on your team, which we will, right? Guess what happens? If you want to train them, the trainings are 3 hours a week, right? We want to train them for 3 hours each times 10 people. That's 30 hours a week, right? Okay, and so we trick ourselves. We think, well, I'm busy for the 3 hours of training, so I'm so busy, I'm going to buy myself 30 hours of training the people one by one by one. Does that make sense? You've got to plug them into that culture where they're gonna teach themselves through the culture, right? Does that make sense? Okay, everybody that you recruit, you're either gonna have to teach them or you're gonna let the culture teach them. Well, where does the culture come from? The culture comes from the trainings, right? Does that make sense? They're gonna pick up the values, the thought processes, the lingo from what? Being at training. So you can teach the people, it's going to take all your time, or you can be a fanatic about getting them to the meetings and let the culture teach them. Okay? I don't know why this thing is buzzing in my hand. That's pretty crazy, though. Okay. It reinforces an environment that instills, tell them I'll call them back. I don't know how they always get me here, right? I don't even know I'm here. Okay. It builds an environment that reinforces the belief, right, that they can do it by seeing other people do it. I only needed to see one guy doing it, right? Does that make sense? I need to see one guy doing it, And listen, you may not watch this. It's overlapping leadership. How many of you, truthfully, you'd say, you know what, I don't think I'm capable enough in this business yet to develop really big leaders? Raise your hand if that's you, okay? The rest of you are liars, okay? So listen, you don't believe that yet, but guess what? There are people here who are capable of teaching your people how to be big leaders, right? Does that make sense? And so listen, when you bring people to the meeting, when you champion the meeting, they have an ability to plug new people into the power source, into the people who are making big money that can teach them what to do, how to do it the right way. You don't need to know anything really, except what? Come to the meeting. Come to the meeting. Meet this guy, right? He's incredible. He's making all this money. He can teach you, right? And you can get out of your own way and let other people build your teams for you. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. How do I keep going here? So you got to understand, total commitment equals total freedom. Okay? And so most people don't understand that. They look at the meetings, they're like, man, 3 hours a week, it's a lot. You know, there's 168 hours, it's 3. It's really inconvenient. I got to drive there. And those are all thoughts of people who will trade time for money forever. Okay? Why? Because again, if you don't plug people into something that teaches the people without you having to teach them, you're going to have to teach them yourself. And you don't have enough time to teach them yourself. They've got to be plugged into something that's going to teach them for you. So think about how many of you are married. Raise your hand. Okay? Think about before you were married. How much time, effort, money, energy did you put into trying to attract a spouse? Some of you are like, nah, not too much, right? Okay. Right? But most of you, it was a reasonable amount, right? In fact, every time you were single and you were out with people of the opposite sex, you were worried about things like, what's that person think of me? Are they looking? Do you think they'd be interested? And then you start talking to them, and you're worried about, like, does this person think I'm cool? Is there a mutual interest? You're like asking their friend to find out, like, what is she? Right? I mean, an enormous amount of your mental effort is going out to obtaining this person called a spouse, right? You spend a lot of time. You start building a lot of relationships that potentially don't work till you find that one. It's like a consuming job, kind of. And then you get married, which is a big commitment. You say, I'm going to be with this one person forever. I'm shutting off all the other options. That's a commitment, right? But that total commitment also brought you total freedom from all the other things I just described. So, right, 3 years in, you're wearing sweatpants every day, right? You don't care what you look like. You ain't brush your hair in 4 days, right? Okay. And that's not good, but some of you know it's the truth, right? Okay, right? But what is the point of the illustration? The commitment bought you freedom from that constant striving, right? Does that make sense? And the total commitment to a few of the right things, the training being one of them, will set you free from constant striving for finances in your life. Because if you're not committed to that thing which is going to bring you residual recurring income, you'll always be committed to the thing for which you trade time for income. Does that make sense? You understanding that? You'll never build a team without first committing to an infrastructure that allows you to build the team. You recruit all day long, but you'll always be training them one by one by one. You'll never have a place where people can bring people who can bring people who can bring people who can get around your shortcomings as a leader. Maybe you're still working a job and they can't be out, but somebody here can do it, and somebody here is good, and somebody here is going to talk your person off the ledge, and you didn't even know it. They took him to coffee. They resold him the dream, right? They got that fire, that spark going back in. Why? Because you brought him to the meeting. Why? Because you are committed to the meeting. Why? Because you know that that's a fundamental building block of you getting free. Is it a commitment? Yes. But without the commitment, you'll never have the freedom. Just like without the commitment of marriage, you'll never have the freedom of stopping to worry about what the other sex person is thinking about you nonstop. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, so total commitment brings total freedom. Okay? So listen, in my opinion, this is the number one most important aspect of building your business. Some of you are like, well, I don't agree. And that's fine. You don't need to agree. But I would ask you to evaluate your results versus my results, and then ask yourself if you still disagree. Okay? That's my favorite. Well, I disagree. How much did you make again last month? $1,200. Well, God bless you. So listen, coming to the meeting is more important than being in the field. Why? You can be in the field and you can recruit somebody and you could ride a sale. But if you don't come to the meeting, you're never going to build anything that gets you out of doing that. I've never, Greg, met a person in Primerica that was ultra successful, long range, who just didn't come to meetings. I've just never seen it. Simon, you've been here for a while. Have you ever seen that? No. Name one person that is making big money, has a huge team, that you don't see them or their team at the training. It says it doesn't exist. So if you know you have a 0% chance of success without plugging in, and you would like to succeed, it would make sense then that you would what? Plug in, commit to plugging in. It's more important than being in the field. I teach my people, don't miss training to make a sale. Isn't that crazy? Right? I don't want you out there making a sale. I want you at the meeting. Why? Because this is the blade that's sharpening your axe, so you can not just make one sale, but you can make 100 sales a week. Right? That's what our team's doing right now, right, guys? 100 sales a week. Right? We told our CEO, we've got a big challenge as a company. He said, Glenn, you can count on Team Relentless for 100 a week. Folks, how could you make 100 sales a week by you missing the meeting, never learning how to build people, never developing your skills, never getting a system to mass train people? You couldn't do it. Right? That's like 15 sales a day. You couldn't possibly make that many sales. It's more important than being in the field. More important than reading a book. It's the most important thing. It's more important than getting licensed. Why? You keep coming to the meeting, sooner or later you're going to get licensed. But I have all sorts of people that are licensed that never come to the meeting and make zero. Right? Does that make sense? Right? All seagulls are birds, but not all birds are seagulls. You understand that? Well, everybody who comes to the meeting eventually gets licensed, but not everybody who's licensed actually ever does anything here, right? Does that make sense? Everybody that comes to the meeting eventually gets pretty well field trained, but not everybody who gets field trained comes to the meeting and is long range successful, right? Does that make sense? Everybody who comes to the meeting will eventually be a great recruiter and a great salesperson, but not every great recruiter and great salesperson comes to the meeting and they don't have the effect of that in their life. So you've got to ask yourself, right? Well, what are you here for? Are you here to do something big? Are you here to change your family's life forever? Man, this company was built for people who are dead serious about changing their life forever in a big way. Is that why you're here? Right? If that's why you're here, you've got to build a team to do it. If you've got to build a team to do it, then listen, number one, make a commitment. Make a commitment that I'm never going to miss. Right? And some of you won't make that commitment tonight, but I believe there's a few of you in here. Say, man, I'll make a commitment. If it's the outcome of my life depends on, I'll make that commitment. Assad told me when I first started, he said, Ian, unless you're dead or you're out of the country, you don't miss a meeting. And I took him at his word. I didn't miss a meeting. I never missed one. Right? And look what happened to me. Right? Is it a coincidence? It's a pretty good coincidence, and I'd be getting superstitious if I were you, right? Like, oh, maybe it's they're not missing the meeting, right? Maybe that's what did it. Just try that. It would probably work, okay? You got to commit, number one. Number two is you got to teach other people to commit to that process. And understand and never feel bad. I don't ever feel bad. Well, I got this going on. I've had a long day at work. I don't ever feel bad asking them to come here. Because I know when they leave, they're going to be recharged. I remember why I'm doing this. I remember my dreams. I remember my goals, right? They go to their job, and the job's goal is to get you to forget about your goals. The salary is what they paid you to give up on your dreams, right? Okay, and then you come here, and somebody's like, hey, no, remember? Remember why you're fighting? Remember that dream on the inside of you, Jonathan? Remember when you thought you could do this? Remember when you got a vision of what it looked like? Remember when you saw that you could have something big and that you change your life forever? Remember how you thought about all the people you were going to help? It reminds you. And you see all your fellow warriors, right? And you're like, man, if they're doing it, I can do it, right? It's about going and getting up one more time, digging deep one more time again. You'll never get that as an island to yourself. And neither will your people, okay? You connect, you inspire. Guys, listen, that's what it's about. So I want to just paint a picture for you. And I got more stuff, but we're out of time. I want to paint a picture for you in your mind's eye. And this is what I would do when we had 20 people, guys. We had 20 people coming to meetings. And I get everybody together, and I just sell them on the dream. I'd be like, man, listen, one day, you're going to walk in this door, right, at 6:20, and the music's going to be thumping, and you're going to hear that bass from the front door, right? And there's going to be people everywhere. The hall, the front office, right? The vestibule is going to be filled with tons of people. And you're going to walk into this hallway to come back into this room, and you're not going to be able to move Be like, excuse me. It's filled with people. And the smiles on their faces are going to be contagious. And you're going to walk back into this room and the music's going to be louder and the roar of the people, right? Is going to, you walk in, you're like, man, there's so many people here. Right? I can't even move. And every one of them is a dream. Every one of those people is a dream. Every one of those people is somebody God brought here to change their life through you. Every one of those people. And it's 6:25 and the music's getting even louder. You're like, people keep pouring in. You're like, man, I don't know how we're going to fit all these. And you look around and you realize that's your team. Those are your people. Right? And they're not just here. They're in multiple offices. And every single person there is a dream. It's a future that you're going to touch. And every single person there is somebody on your team that can make a sale that you could be in Belize and getting override income from. And I would teach our people to get a vision of that. And I want you to do that tonight when you go home. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to see that. I want you to see yourself reaching out and pulling that door open and just being flooded with the noise of all those people. I want you to experience it. Everything, every sight, every sound. I want you to see all the faces, see the smiles. Put it in your mind's eye. Why? Because everything that is was created first in the mind of man and then brought into reality. And you're going to get what you focus on, what you think about, you're going to bring about. And listen, it's so easy to think that there's just going to be the normal 20, 30, 40, 50 people that are here. Listen, you got to stop thinking that. And you got to start seeing 200, 300, 400 people here. You got to see people parked in that far lot. You got to see people parked in that thing. You got to see that and you got to call that into your team. You got to begin to speak that out. Call the things that are not as though they are. You need to talk about how you have the biggest team in Michigan. You have 400 or 500 people coming to your meetings. You got to start seeing it in your mind's eye, speaking it out of your mouth, and start talking to your new people about it. Because guess what? The only thing your new people know is what you tell them. Are you bold enough? Are you committed enough to start getting a vision for your team and start talking to them about 100 people at the meeting, 200 people at the meeting, 300 people at the meeting? Listen, it starts with a core group. This is that core group. Will you commit to each other? Listen, a team is not a group of people that play together. It's a group of people that trust each other. You understand that? Listen, are you willing to be one of those trusted core inner circle people here that says, you know what? I'm in for 100 people out. Are you in for 100 people out? I'm in for 100 people out. Are you in for 100 people out? And we can trust each other that we're never going to miss. He's always going to be here. And I'm always going to be here. And man, we're going to fire each other up. And he's always going to have a guest. And I'm always going to have a guest. Right? And we committed. Said, hey, it doesn't matter what happens. You're here, I'm here, right? We in, we can trust each other. All right, who else is in? Are you in? Am I in? Great. And listen, it doesn't take more than 8 or 10 of you who say, I'll never miss. I don't care what's wrong. My car breaks down, I'll call the Uber. I'm sick, I'll wear the mask like the people in the airport. I will be here and you'll be here. And you get this committed group of people that says no matter what, right? And then those people start bringing people and the environment starts growing and everybody you talk to starts saying yes. And they start coming and they start doing things, right? And so you got them, you brought them, and they didn't do anything. And all of a sudden they're bringing people and you're like, wow, it's happening. It's like magic. It's like magic when it goes. Any of you ever had that happen on your team with momentum? It's like magic when it begins to happen. Folks, listen, that's coming for you. That's coming for you. Look at you. If each one of you brought one person on Tuesday night, this room would be packed to capacity. The question is, are you committed? Are you committed? Can your team count on you? No matter what, you'll have one. Right? Listen, if that group, that small group commits, it doesn't take long, guys. By the end of this year, you could have this thing packed out with more people than you've ever seen in this place. And that's going to be people on each and every one of your teams. That's going to be people building the blocks of freedom in your life and building the blocks of freedom in their own lives, right? That's why you got to commit. That's why you got to be a part of it. That's why you got to decide, hey, I'm not going to be somebody who waits for others to commit. I'm going to be that person that commits up front, right? How many of you guys are committed for that? Listen, let's do something big. And you all don't need to be committed. You all don't need to be. Just the right ones do, right? Do you understand that? Just the right ones. I had 3 freaking people at meetings sometimes, y'all. 3. But they were the right 3. Out of those 3, we built a hierarchy. We built a dynasty. We built an empire that the entire company knows. Out of 3 dadgum people who refused to quit, who never said die, and man, we built, and you'll build the same way. God bless you guys. Thanks for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ian. We appreciate you coming, man.